Hello and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today we're going to be going over my expansions ranked pretty much. I've done something kind of similar to this in the past in terms of going over what each expansion gave, sort of their biggest selling points were within the expansion itself, but I'm not really going to go into much detail about it. I'm going to just give my personal opinion on what expansions I found the most enjoyable, with obviously Dragonflight being announced and seeing a lot of the core aspects of Dragonflight, and it got me wondering sort of what makes a good expansion good, in my honest opinion. This is obviously going to be a very much opinion-based episode, so don't get mad at me. If you think that, or if you disagree with me, if you think that my order is completely wrong, then fair enough, that's your own opinion as well, and you're more than entitled to that. But some of these I was unsure about, some of them it's very much up in the air. I don't remember as much as I think I do about the expansion. So it's very much what I can remember off the top of my head and how much I actually enjoyed the expansion when playing it. So I have played through every single expansion. Wrath being the least sort of fresh in my memory, because I've played World of Warcraft Classic, I've played World of Warcraft Classic TBC, I've played Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, Mists of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, and Shadowlands, and I will be playing Dragonflight. So we're going to start off with the weekly stuff, as always. You have the world bosses for this week. You have Arona Monos, Morgeth, and Antros. Make sure you head on over there, get your anima, get your conduits, get your gear, do all that good stuff for the week. You have the Shadowpan Showdown as the brawl for this week, and that is I believe it's a 5v5 in the Shadowpan arena, and you have to kill the enemy team's boss before they kill yours, and they're trying to stop you, you try and stop them, etc. It's a very fun brawl, especially if you've got quite good sort of cleave damage, maybe like a warlock or a mage that can just spam stuff like that, like a frost mage, etc. And you have the event for this week is Burning Crusade Time Walking. So if you want some, TBC gear, definitely head on over there, get your Time Walking badges, get the Illidari mount. Is it the Illidari mount? It's one of the Dragon Hawks, I believe, and I feel like it's called the Illidari mount, but I might just be making that completely up. But yeah, if you are wanting the Dragonhawk mount, flying mount for this time walking event, then definitely head on over there and spend them 5,000 time walking badges that you've been saving up. So, first expansion, or the top of my list. This one was tough because I've played through, obviously, all of the expansions, and all of them have their own unique feel to them. They all have their own unique feel to them. They all have something to offer. But the first expansion that I'm going to go with, Legion. Now, Legion, for me, was the best expansion because it's a very recent one, so I have a lot of memories of it. I have a lot of fond memories. I have a lot of fond memories of seeing big numbers. Now, big numbers mean more damage, not necessarily, but that's how it works, right? So you're seeing damage in the millions, whereas compared to now, we're seeing it in the 20,000s and stuff like that. Legion came at a point where World of Warcraft was very much on the downslope after Warlords of Draenor because of the lack of content. And the content patches in Legion that came out were amazing. I think it was every like 70 odd days we got a new patch come out, so 0.5 and then a 0.1 patch, 0.15, 0.2 patch, etc. Every 70 odd days. So it was really good, and the content that they were bringing out wasn't just bleh. It wasn't sort of any old content. It was very good content that was very useful, and it brought in a lot of the systems that we know in retail today. So it brought in Mythic Plus dungeons, which has been a massive staple point for the PvE side of World of Warcraft. It's basically arenas, but the PvE version. It's something to utilize at the very high end game and push yourself to as far as you can within the game. Now, Mythic raiding is obviously very important and at the forefront of World of Warcraft, but you can only go so far with Mythic raiding. Once you kill the last boss of the Mythic raid, what else is there? With Mythic Plus, you can keep going forever. And that's what was so good about Legion as well. It introduced these systems that we were not familiar with at the moment. It really brought to the forefront the borrowed power systems that we've been dealing with for the past few expansions. So it was the artifact weapons that Legion introduced to us. So, what is it? The Ashbringer, you had the Blades of the Fallen Prince for Death Knights, you had Fellow Malorn for Fire Mages, which was a very powerful blade, you had Lunath, which was held by the Guardians of Azeroth for Arcane Mages, you had many different weapons, all from different lore standpoints, and that's what made them very unique and special. Now, obviously, a lot of people having these same weapons doesn't make it feel as unique and special, but you could customize it. You could customize the look of the Ashbringer or customize the look of your Fellow Malorn, and there were hidden artifact appearances. There were multiple appearances to go after, so you had that feeling of uniqueness to them, which was really good. So Legion I would put as my top one, mainly because of the systems that it introduced. Borrowed power has always been in the game, I will say that. Whether it's through world buffs or whatever. But this borrowed power was at the very forefront of the expansion and was the first expansion to do so. So that is why I think it was probably one of the... It wasn't implemented perfectly, but they learned a lot from it, and it was very much a different means to the end game of World of Warcraft, which was very good. Second choice. Now, the second choice came in a very close second, and it is Wrath of the Lich King. Wrath being the third expansion. Not the third. Well, technically the third, if you include World of Warcraft as an expansion, but it isn't. So, second expansion. Wrath of the Lich King being the second expansion, coming out in around 2008? I think it might be 2008. Oh my god, it might be. That is a long time ago. Somewhere around there. But Wrath of the Lich King was very much what I grew up with when I first started playing WoW. I started playing WoW end of Burning Crusade. I don't really remember much of the Burning Crusade at all because I was leveling during that period. So Wrath of the Lich King was sort of where I started endgame content. Now, the PvP was always enjoyable. I was awful at it. But I'll be playing with my sister in 2v2 arenas, and we had a game plan. Send her in to die. If I killed something in that time, then we've got a chance at winning the game. That kind of thing. It was a really good strategy, and it worked 50% of the time. It worked all the time. So, yeah. It sticks to me mainly because it was the first endgame content that I actually got to experience in my World of Warcraft journey. I remember patches coming out which gave us the Halls of Reflection, the Forge of Souls, the Pit of Sauron dungeons. I remember killing the Lich King in Icecrown Citadel. I remember a lot of... I just remember a lot of the endgame content within Wrath of the Lich King, and I think that's why it sticks out to me so much, because it is very much my very first expansion that I got to fully experience, and that is always going to stick with you. Your first expansion is always going to be probably one of the highest up there, because you'll always have fond memories as it is when you got into the game the most, if that makes sense. And you know, if people started in Battle for Azeroth, which I know some people did, they might rank it highly, mainly because they've never experienced the endgame content that, you know, we've had in Legion, or we've had in Mr. Pandaria or Wrath of the Lich King, stuff like that. Speaking of Mr. Pandaria, I would put that as my third. Now, that is a very strange one. A lot of people kind of overlook Mr. Pandaria because it was very weird, the expansion. But when you actually look back on the expansion as a whole, it was very good. It had 4 major content patches, I believe. I believe it went up to 5.4, which was the Siege of Orgrimmar. It had many different sort of mini games, like the Half Hill, where you were tending to your own crops and stuff. And, you were constantly going out in the world to do your tailoring, because you had to be at a certain place to do your tailoring, to weave certain things. You were constantly out and about. You constantly had world bosses going on. You constantly had like dailies going on the Isle of Thunder or something. You could grind out mobs endlessly in the Isle of Giants to get your mount, to get your little pet, to get just whatever, reputation. It's very overlooked for some weird reason, but when you look at the content that was given in this expansion, it was really good. The biggest thing that came from Mr. Pandaria was the Timeless Isles. Now, the Timeless Isles is basically a blueprint for every single 0.2 patch that we've had since the Timeless Isles. It's always been an island where it's very much a free-for-all. A lot of rares are spawning, a lot of things are happening on the island that you might not get to them because other people might kill it. You might get to it. It's a very rare occasion. It might drop a mount. It might drop a pet. It might just be for some reputation or whatever. That all rhymed, and that was really cool. Sorry about that. But yeah, Mr. Pandaria is very overlooked, but for the reasons that I don't really understand, because it had great raids, it had good PvP system. Oh, might have been unbalanced a little bit. PvP is never going to be balanced in an MMO. So it is what it is. I remember warriors absolutely destroying everyone in Mr. Pandaria for like an entire patch, and that was something to behold. But yeah, it happens. The zones in Mr. Pandaria were amazing. The Jade Forest seems like a small zone, but it just kept carrying on. It just kept carrying on, and it was this lush green forest. And the stories that were being told through the zones were really clever and really good. And yeah, it's just, you just don't notice Mr. Pandaria for some reason, and it's really weird. Now, my fourth is going to be very, very controversial, but Warlords of Draenor. Now, you might be wondering what the hell, that's absolutely ridiculous. Warlords of Draenor was awful and shit. Well, it wasn't. Now, hear me out on this. The content that Warlords of Draenor provided was really good content. They've possibly done the best raid tier in Warlords of Draenor, with it being Blackrock Foundry. That is possibly one of the best raids in the game, according to PvEers. Now, Warlords of Draenor was also very simple with how it did its gearing system for PvP. And that's another bonus. The PvP itself was very enjoyable. You had a lot of crazy things that you can play around with. You had the prismatic crystal for mages, where you'd have a one-shot macro. You would have loads of different wacky things in the game itself. But because of the lack of content that Warlords of Draenor gave, it is very looked down upon. But at the same time, garrisons were, in my opinion, one of the funnest things to have, but they just needed to implement it a bit better. You had different factions invading your garrison, and you can invite friends to come and defend it. You could customize your garrison to a certain extent. You could choose what buildings were in it, what statues you put up, and everything. You had all of your battle pets walking around. You had all of your mission followers walking out of your garrison when you sent them on missions. You could physically see them walk out and go and leave to do that mission, which was a really cool touch. You had constant switching of personnel in your garrison. So you got a different daily quest each time and stuff like that. So it made it really feel alive. But because of how badly it was implemented, you just didn't have to ever leave your garrison and you were very much alone there. And that's what people don't like about it in an MMO, that you were very much alone in your garrison. And if they implemented a system where people could just come visit, like they could literally just garrison hop people on their realm and go and visit their garrisons, get ideas, inspirations, and maybe put a few more customization options into your garrison, then maybe it might be good. It might be absolutely amazing and stuff like that. But WoD is fourth mainly because of the content it actually provided rather than the amount of content that it gave, if that makes sense. Now, Shadowlands I would put as fifth. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, what the hell, Shadowlands has been an absolute disaster, and you're kind of right. But for Shadowlands, again, I go back to the borrowed power system. I enjoy the stuff like conduits, or not conduits, sorry, covenants. I very much enjoy the Night Fae, the Venthyr, the Necrolords, and the Kyrian. I enjoy the choice that you get on your character. You can choose between any one of these covenants and get a different ability depending on your class. And I really enjoy that choice. That's basically it. That's how simple it is. I enjoy that choice, and I enjoy that I can switch it up constantly. I don't enjoy something that is very stale in terms of content-wise, switching my characters. I've always switched my characters for every single expansion. Up until now, I think I'm going to stick with my Boomkin going into Dragonflight. And a main reason for that is because I like the change. But Shadowlands has provided that just through the Covenant system alone. I could have went Night Fae for dungeons and Kyrian for PvP. I could have went Venthyr for raiding or dungeons and stuff like that. We won't talk about Maldraxxus, although there is some Maldraxxus stuff there for PvP. But yeah, you can like switch up completely, and that's what I enjoy about these borrowed power systems. Some of them didn't offer that sort of flexibility, but the Covenant systems definitely did, and that is probably one of the bonuses for why Shadowlands is fifth on my list. Now, for sixth, it's going to be Burning Crusade, mainly because of the fact that Burning Crusade is very much a rinse and repeat type of thing. It's very much... I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of... It's retail WoW, but instead of doing more higher and higher mythics, increasing the dungeons, you're doing the same dungeons but just getting better gear. So you're flying through the dungeons quicker at no extra difficulty, but your character is getting substantially more powerful. Whereas when you're getting substantially more powerful in retail, the dungeons are also getting substantially more powerful. So you're really pushing yourself to the limit. And that's where I enjoy it. I find the content in TBC very... From what I've done in retail, it seems very streamlined. It's just more you're having to get more people to coordinate. That's the difficulty with raiding, in my opinion, in TBC. I could be completely wrong. Some people might think that the mechanics in TBC are very tough in terms of raiding and stuff, which, by all means, that is a fair comment, and everyone has their own definition of like difficult mechanics and stuff like that. But for me, it's very much repetitive, and it really isn't ult-friendly. Ult-friendly is a big thing in all of this. None of the expansions are ult-friendly for the most part. But leveling and getting a character ready to raid in TBC is a lot tougher than getting a character ready to raid in, say, Classic, which is my seventh in the list. I'm going to class it because World of Warcraft as a whole is basically an expansion. It is the expansion of the game. It's, the birth of it. I'm counting World of Warcraft as its base game on its own. Classic is very much, you don't have much option. I love how diverse it can be in terms of the professions. I love the community about it. I love how simplified everything is, and I find it incredibly calming to play for the most part. But once you've done everything, you really have done everything. There's no point going back on different characters. It's very tough to get into if you're trying to level a different character and stuff like that. If you've got the time, then by all means, level the character and play the character. They all do play very differently, but in raiding circumstances, it's very much you press the same button. Now, this can be said for retail, obviously, but in retail PvP, I'm pressing every single button that I've got on my class. I'm pressing Remove Corruption. I'm pressing Entangling Roots. I'm pressing Wrath, Luna, Starfire, Sunfire, Moonfire, Fury of a Loon. I'm pressing, Bear Form, Cat Form, Travel Form. I'm pressing absolutely everything. In raiding in Classic, as a mage, I was pressing Frostbolt for the first 6 odd months of World of Warcraft Classic. Or, I'd throw in maybe an arcane power here and there on bosses. But yeah, for the most part, I was pressing it for 6 months, just Frostbolt. And that's not fun in terms of repetitive content. So Classic is going to be my 7th. Now, my 8th, my second to last spot, is Battle for Azeroth. I said that I enjoy all of the, borrowed power systems and stuff like that. Legion was very good as it introduced these borrowed power systems. Shadowlands was good because it allowed you to, change up the borrowed power systems. But Battle for Azeroth was just a worse version of both of these things. Legion, very much, you were going to get what you wanted out of your artifact power, and you knew that. With Battle for Azeroth, you had your Azerite gear, and you might not get the right Azerite traits on that piece of gear, which made it very infuriating and very RNG based if you got the right stats and stuff like that. You also had the element of not being able to switch it out, because once you've got your best, it's kind of there to stay until you farm the exact same piece of gear with the same sort of Azerite traits as your previous one. So it was very much a trial run after Legion, which led into Shadowlands, sort of the Covenant system, where you can pick and choose a little bit more and get a bit more freedom. Like the Vault that we have in Shadowlands, you can get up to 9 choices, and if you don't want any of them choices, you can get gold from it, you can get currencies and stuff like that. Whereas in Battle for Azeroth, you would get 1 chest and 1 item in that chest. Good luck. You get no say in the item, just good luck. You better hope that you get that item, otherwise you are screwed. And this obviously wasn't as rewarding as some people might think. So BFA is lower on the list, mainly because the borrowed power systems that it implemented just didn't work. I love the zones. I love the feel of, the Waycrest Manor dungeon and the sort of, witches in the woods zones. I like the pirate feel and the sea shantiness of Kultiras. I like Storm Song. I like the green fields and, the sages. I like Zandalar, where you've got the massive empire in the middle of the zone. You've got Nazmir, which I'm not a big fan of, I'm not going to lie. And you have Vol'dun, which is just a massive desert, which, makes it very easy to numlock run across while you go and grab a drink. So it has its perks, but honestly, the borrowed system is what killed it for me. Finally, Cataclysm. I don't know why I rate Cataclysm so low. I have no sort of memories of it. I have no bad memories. I have no good memories. I just have nothing from it. I don't remember much. The only thing I remember from Cataclysm was the world getting its revamp, and there's a quest in the Blasted Lands where there are 2 or 3 people telling a story of when Deathwing came along to the Blasted Lands and scorched the earth, And I know that each story gets more and more ridiculous, and I believe that you walked up to Deathwing as a goblin and just punched him in the face or something. It's something stupid like that. You rode your little trike down the massive trench that Deathwing had just created. You get out and you punch Deathwing. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing I remember from Cataclysm. That and the damn dungeon that was in Blackrock Mountain. I forget what it's called. I absolutely forget what it's called. But it wasn't great. It had like one of the trolls as like the first boss. Then the second boss, you had the female inquisitor or something, where she had the two mobs, and you had to stand in between the beam of the mobs. Otherwise, they would become really powerful and kill you pretty much and stuff like that. That's the only two things that I sort of remember from the expansion. Oh, that and a Ring of Blood in Twilight Highlands. Yep, that's my extent of Cataclysm. It didn't really add much. The talents were very much the same as Wrath of the Lich King. They were just added to. The only thing is the world got a revamp, in my honest opinion. And that's probably why it's less impactful, because it's Azeroth, but you're leveling in Azeroth again. It's like you're a level 1 starting all over again. And, it's not as enjoyable. You want to be on an adventure. You want to understand what's happening and stuff like that. Maybe that's why as well. I just had no idea what was happening in Cataclysm, because I hadn't caught up on the lore. I hadn't really been looking into when patches come out, when expansions come out and stuff like that. So, that might be a reason for it. But with Dragonflight coming up, I would like to hope it's somewhere around the 3-4 mark at the very least. In my opinion, from what I see, all of the systems that they're adding, which is barely any, but stuff like Dragonflying is all going to be account wide, so you won't need to re-farm it on your ults and stuff like that, which is a massive plus, and that is already good incentive to be liking the expansion before it's even got a release date. But that is all for this week. Again, this list is very much my own opinion. If you, a lot of people, dislike the choices that I've made, thinking, why is Mr. Pandaria that high? Warlords of Draenor or whatever? Why is Burning Crusade that low? Why is Classic, etc.? But it's my own opinion, and I enjoy the game differently to how everyone else does. And yeah, I understand and respect your choice if you think that, say, Cataclysm should be top instead of bottom or something like that. Or Legion should be bottom instead of top. But thank you all very much for listening as always, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.